Welcome to this tutorial for macOS. We're gonna learn how to set up a computer to work on DecBC or ZooBC source code. When you see this number appearing on the top right of your screen, means that you can go and look in the description of the video and copy the command that is being used in the tutorial. First of all, let's go to download and install Golang. To do this, we go to golang.org/dl, and between the several versions that are offered to us, we're going to choose the one for Apple macOS, as this tutorial is for macOS. Now, once the software has been downloaded, we can simply double click on the icon or click on the notification in the browser, and this gives the start to the installation of Golang. We're going to be asked to enter the administrator password, and it's important to notice that the user that we are using to do this setup is an administrator user. On macOS, people can choose to have user to be regular user or administrator. To code on Golang and to work with ZooBC and DecBC, we need to be administrator. Okay, Golang has been installed. Now we need to open the terminal. We can find the terminal inside the application and inside the utilities folder. Once the terminal is launched, you can execute the command go version to see if Golang has been installed properly. Now we need to create a few folders to get ready and set up the correct structure to work with Go. You can find in the description of the video the list of the folder to be created with the command. This is gonna create in the user main directory the folder Go, and inside several other folders where we're going to later download the source code of ZooBC. Once this has been done, we move to the next step. We need to set the environment variables in your computer to be ready for Golang. You need to find which is the shell that you're using. Executing the command ps -p $$ twice, you're gonna get a response where you can see under the CMD which is the shell that you are using. So I'm personally using Z shell. If you use Z shell, then you will need to set a file with the environment variable that we need for Golang. If you're using bash, then the file is different. Let's look for Z shell. So we do pico / and .zshenv. You paste these two lines that you find below in the description of the video, and this will be necessary for your shell to always load with those variables inside. If you're using bash, then you need to open a file that is /bash_profile. The content of the file is the same. So either way, at this point you should close the terminal and reopen the terminal so that your shell is gonna load these variables. But let's move forward and let's install the next piece of software that we need to work on DecBC and ZooBC source code. Let's go to the browser, open a new tab, and here we need to go and download Code Visual Studio from Microsoft. You can use any other code editor. This is particularly good and is the one that we're using in this tutorial. As in with Golang, we're offered different options. We're gonna download the macOS version because we are doing this tutorial for macOS. And again, once the code has been installed, we double click on the icon. This is not an installer, it's a zip file. The zip file is gonna open and is gonna contain the Visual Studio code. We just move it into the application folder, then we go to application and we can find it there. Double click on it and this is gonna open for the first time Visual Studio. There are gonna be some modules and other things to install, but Visual Studio is the tool that we're gonna use to manage the code of ZooBC and DecBC. Now we need to install another piece, a small module for Golang, so we enter into the directory of Go, and we execute this instruction to download from the internet the script to then install the golangci-lint. And this is gonna be done properly. To see if the installation it went well, we can execute this command to check the version that is being installed. Once this is done, it's the time to install Docker. Docker is a tool that allows to run several different things. Once we're gonna use it is for a cross compiler. So once we create the binary of our application, we are going to use xgo in Docker to create Windows Linux versions. So download the version for Mac that you need with the Intel chip or with the Apple Silicon. And once the Docker file is being downloaded, as with the other, just open the file, drag it into the application folder, and once the copy has been made, which is gonna take a little bit of time because it's a large file, then you can simply eject the virtual disk that has been used for the installation. Once you are in the application folder, you can scroll up and see the Docker icon. Double click on the Docker icon. This is gonna open Docker for the first time again here. And here we get a warning that we're gonna be asked for the administrator password. Again, we put the administrator password and we let Docker run for the first time. We wait the engine of Docker starts, and once it starts, we can simply close the UI. We don't need to do their tutorials or other things. It's an alternative, you can do it if you want. But we move to our terminal and we download xgo. So we get this from GitHub, and here we notice that the command lines developer tool of Apple are not installed on this computer. So the command to download the xgo fails. We need to then install the command line. I speed up this part of the video a lot. It's gonna take quite some time to download and install everything. Once the command line for developer tools of Xcode are installed in your computer, then we can go back to the terminal and execute the command again. At this point, the command executes with no errors. Now we are going to get Docker to pull this xgo as well, and here is gonna download a lot of things. I also speed up this. It's gonna take quite some time to process all the extraction of large files, all the pulls, and all the downloads that are needed. Even if it's speed up, it's gonna still take some time to watch this process. Not really much. We're done with it now, and now xgo has been installed. At this point, we need to create some links for xgo and the golangci in order to make them executable from other places. We check if the directory user local bin exists. If it doesn't exist, the command to execute is mkdir user local bin. Once the directory exists and we are in, we can then execute the command to create the link. Because we use the command sudo, we need to put the administrator password. For the second command, the administrator password is going to be not necessary because the shell remembers it. At this point, we can go to our code and clone the repo. You're going to find the link for the repo down. So let's select the correct folder. Don't double click on the folder icon, else automatically select them, but go to the last one. And let's open the repository. Once we open the repository, we see that we have all the source code there. Once we open the first Go file, the Code Visual Studio is going to ask you to install Go for Visual Studio. This is going to help us test check if there are problems in the code while we are working. At this point, we can see that we also have a terminal here, and it would be good to do all the command from this terminal, but for convenience, we go to this one that has the font that are much bigger. So at this point, we go in the directory where the repository has been cloned. Once we are here, we download the mods for Go in order to bring Go up to date with all the functionality that are needed. And we also download all the submodules from the repo. Once this is done, it's important to do this go-mod tidy because there can be some issue that stop us from going ahead. Back here, we can work in our code. Let's pretend we're making some changes, and once we want to compile our work, we see that we are in the correct directory where the source code downloaded from GitHub is, and we can try to do make test. Make test goes through all the repo where there are test files, is gonna do test with the code and then give us an okay or let us know if there are problems. Once the make test work, we can create the binary of ZooBC. To do this, we just execute the command go build -o ZooBC to output the file ZooBC, and this has created the binary of ZooBC. Now we use the xgo to make version for all the operating system. So this is going to compile for Windows, compile for Linux, compile for OS X, the latest version. So we can see here is creating the binaries for Windows, and then for Linux, and then for OS X, macOS. So once this is done, we can also compile. There are two binaries for ZooBC or DecBC. One is the core node, and one is a command utility. Let's look in the distribution directory now what has been produced. There are three folders: Darwin, Linux, and Windows. If we go, for example, inside the Darwin one, we can see the binary created for OS X. So we can also try to run. This is ZooBC. ZooBC is important to be run together with configuration files, but now we're gonna just try to ask the status of the daemon. It's gonna tell us there is no installed. Big mistake, I need to run as admin, so before the command we need to write sudo and then enter our password. To see that the binary is working properly, we see the response is service not installed, so everything is okay, is working properly. Let's go back, and at this point we try to compile the command line utility, which is called zshenv, and this also is gonna create in the same folders the version for Windows, for Linux and for OS X. If I enter inside this directory and then I go inside the Darwin version, the one for macOS, I can try to see if the binary is there. The binary is being created properly. I can try to execute. I don't need to be sudo for this one. I just triggered the help, so I'm gonna see that the binary is working all right. So to summarize, when you reboot your computer, you want to work on DecBC and ZooBC software, everything is set up now. If you want to compile, you need to launch the Docker. If you don't want to compile, but you want just to work on the code, simply run the Code Studio. At this point, just to go through the process, I am starting up the Docker. We can see the icon up there that is booting up, and the UI that shows the Docker engine is starting. I can close this, and simply is gonna run in the background. I can always see the status over there if I need. I can open the Visual Studio Code, and here I'm gonna find my code to work on, and my terminal to compile and test the work that I've been doing. I can go and see, for example, the transaction balance code and whatever else inside the node code there is. I can go in source control, and at this point, if I made some changes that are interesting or I fix some bugs, I can enter a message and push it to the repo. We're going to evaluate the changes that have been made, understand why. If they're good, we're going to merge it with the core code for ZooBC, so to make DecBC available. There are several extensions you may want to install. See, some are recommended, for example, for Docker, for GitHub, and honestly, I don't like Microsoft too much, but this Visual Studio Code is very, very powerful. So get your environment working all right. Look at the code, read the book, read all the yellow paper, so you understand the logic on how things are working. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and looking forward to get your support in the development of DecBC and in the debugging of ZooBC.